Right. Here we are. Welcome, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
Round of applause. Yes. Welcome to Eureka. Who is here for the first time? Raising your hand like good students. Look at each other. Make some noise if you're here for the first time. That's what we want to hear. Yes. Who's been here before? Also raising your hand. I guess you didn't hear what I said. Make some noise if you've been here before. Thank you. Oh,
Nice,
sweet.
nice.
Well, I'm Kevin Whittinghill. This is...
Alan Sakyan.
And
We are Eureka.
Yes. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for coming, guys.
If you haven't been here before, this is a science comedy show, so you're going to learn stuff, you're going to laugh as well. It's structured around questions. So our speaker tonight, to be announced shortly, will be giving her talk based on the question she asks you. And if you answer that question correctly, you win an amazing prize that's in there. Woo! Yes!
Don't be shy. Raise your hand.
So let's do a test run. Here's a question. What is the fertility rate in San Francisco? 107? What? 20%? Is that a rate or is that a percentage? 5%. Any other answers? Fertility rate in San Francisco.
I don't know, but I'm trying to raise it.
You're trying to raise it, all right. See this guy afterwards at the bar. If he's not attractive, just give him a hug and just slowly walk away. I'm kidding. The answer is 3.2 dogs, because we're in San Francisco. Yeah, no children. Children are just raised to take care of the pets. That's what San Francisco's about.
And for the pets to interact with the children. For them to
Yeah,
have a better environment growing up.
Right, but it's pet focused.
It is
Don't
pet
get
focused.
it. Don't get it. Yeah. See, there we go.
So if you haven't been here before, the mission of Eureka is to demystify science in ways that are relatable, educational, and entertaining. Does that sound like it's up your alley, guys? Ah, okay, cool. So today we'll be demystifying some interesting topics for you.
Yeah, demystify. This is also our last show of the year.
Ew.
Super excited.
But we're back in 2017.
This is true. We are returning. And we've learned actually a lot. We started in what? Was it May?
We started in May.
Yeah.
We've had 8 shows.
8
So
shows?
today, this is our 9th show. And we've had some incredible scientists on the show. Yeah, let's give it up for the scientists that come on the show.
Thank
Absolutely.
God. You don't want to hear me talk for an hour and a half. That is wrong.
No, or me, no. The scientists are and the comedians bantering along the way, they're
Yeah.
great. But yeah, who have we had? We've had neuroscientists, we've had biohackers, we've had astrophysicists, we've had nuclear fusion physicists. So we've had a hedge fund manager in the healthcare industry. It's been a great ride in
Amazing.
2016, and thank you guys for all your support along the way.
Is there anything in particular that you loved, in particular that you learned throughout the year? I think that anything that sticks out or stands out?
Besides the constant bantering of the comedians about Tinder and all the other jokes, I really enjoyed the episode with exoplanets with Natalie Batalha. So we learned what transit photometry was. So that's when you look at a star and you wait and wait and wait, and then it dims for a bit, and then it becomes bright, and that way you can then determine the proximity of that planet to the star and also the mass of it, and you can know if it's a habitable planet or not. And that was pretty cool. Also, the last episode about health was really interesting. Homeostatic capacity. That was cool.
Yeah. Everyone here have a good homeostatic capacity? Liars.
Liars. You drink too much.
You're like, I'll tell you as soon as I Google that.
Body's ability to come back to a state of equilibrium. So the easiest one is the 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit body temperature. So when it goes high or cold, it's your body's ability to come back to that equilibrium.
Reframing how you look at health and whether you're healthy. It's about stasis. So this has been an amazing year. We've learned a lot. We've laughed a lot. We've given away a lot of prizes that people sometimes want and sometimes don't. I think that's going to be the same case tonight. And we have an amazing show tonight. Great comics and a great speaker. Should we begin by introducing the comics?
Yes, absolutely. And
Okay.
just a quick, the speaker that started the year is also the speaker that's ending the year.
Okay. Wow.
Oh.
We'll get to that in a second, but let's part the Red Seas and take a look here. We've got our two comics. If they could come on stage, John Allen and Krista Fatka, come on down. Have your seats, yes. You can have your glass. You guys see, I put you guys in specimen jars because I care about you, and I hope to capture you someday. So guys, you don't know much of what's going on tonight. You don't know really much of the subject or anything. You're kind of just coming here cold, like the audience.
Most nights.
Most nights you don't know.
I don't know
Okay.
what's going
Describes me.
Describes you. Cool. And are you guys, now before we begin, do you guys want to announce anything that you're doing? Any shows, anything coming up? Or where you're going for Christmas or the holidays, however you describe it?
No, you, please.
No, I have the same show every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday called Cheaper Than Therapy around the corner.
It's a great
Good
show.
show. It's a good show.
He books me, so please go see it.
And it's sold out every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
Well, Fridays and Saturdays, but
It's still great.
you know.
He packs it out. Yeah, it's one of the best shows, if not the best show in the city.
What else do you pack?
One of the best shows? Fuck you.
If not the best show.
Because there's also this show.
She produces
this
shows.
show-
I'm
this
trying
show's-
to be diplomatic here, for Christ's sake.
I'm not.
Also, there's my show. I have a show at Festa Lounge. It's a karaoke bar in Japantown. As long as we're plugging shows, it's one of the best shows.
If
in
not
San
the best
Francisco.
show in
If
the
not
city.
the best, but I don't want
She
to step
books
on
me
anyone's
too.
toes.
Exactly.
That is all.
Hugs for everybody. All right.
We love each other when we're not fiercely competing for attention.
That's the next hour and a half. Hope you enjoy. All right, I think we've introduced ourselves more than enough.
So let's introduce our guest scientist for the evening. So our guest scientist is Dr. Vivienne Ming. She started our year off, and she is now going to be ending our year. She was named, this is such a long list of things, it makes me feel so bad about myself every time. Named one of 10 women to watch in tech in 2013 by Inc. magazine. She co-founded SOCOS, where machine learning and cognitive neuroscience combine to maximize students' life outcomes. And she will be talking about that today. And she's also visiting scholar at UC Berkeley's Redwood Center for Theoretical Neuroscientists, where she pursues her research in neural prosthetics. Ooh. All right, so let's introduce our guest scientist for the evening, Dr. Vivienne Ming.
Now my hands are full. I have to say, those are absolutely two of the best shows in the city.
If not the best.
Absolutely not the best. I've never been to any, ever, but I'm confident, having met you backstage, that I would find any other show to be completely unsatisfactory.
Starting
Oh
off
my
with
God, I
facts.
love her.
She's very factually based.
Yes, very facts. Yeah.
She is, and she's going to be teaching about some great, incredible stuff tonight. We're really excited. Let's roll it right off to Vivienne's research.
Okay,
and
we'll start
questions.
with the first question then. We're going to jump right in.
Do you have anything you'd like to say beforehand?
To the blaring lights and the vague sense that there must be people over there. No, I think we should get right into. I was asked to come up with questions, and I thought it might be amusing to try just throwing some pictures up on the screen. And so let's imagine this is the video daily double for a version of Eureka, and see how it goes.
All right.
And our topics will be...
Our
Okay.
topics are all over the place. AI, neuroprosthetics, health technology. Essentially what I do is I research quite literally how to make better people. And it turns out to do that, you need to make better brains and better bodies and better kids and better companies and better families. So my research and my work ranges over a large area.
She's saying
and
we're not good enough? That's
Yeah,
what she's
yeah.
saying?
She already gave up on me.
Great show.
I asked.
I can be better.
I asked.
Are you
and
sure?
She said no. Cannot improve, Kevin. Move on.
You know, the original spirit for me in coming up with essentially neuroprosthetics, which if you're not familiar, we're talking cyborgs, was really that comedy needed to be improved, and what better way than
You know,
to put chips
Once,
into
wait,
comedians'
wait,
brains.
wait. Once you create like an AI like stand-up comic, and that like comic's performing like a 10-minute set like in an empty barn Milpitas, I think it'll like pour water on its circuits. I don't think that's the right way to go. It'll realize there's nothing here.
Make it a sad robot.
It's
Just
a sad robot.
There we go.
It'll break up with this robot girlfriend. Nothing's happening.
Over and over again, every night it gets on stage, it realizes that it will never understand love, and its brain will melt.
Yeah.
But I would love to build such a robot.
All right. I would love to open for that robot. That's as far as I'll
Throwing it
go.
out there, yeah, throwing it out there.
I'm just saying, I could do a nice tight 7 on like Robot Tinder or something.
Yeah.
You know, I could do that. I already feel depressed. I just started the show. Oh,
But you
boy.
have nice pants on. What's
I
this
do.
What's going on there?
You
I
can
don't
pet
know
them
about that.
during the show.
I will.
They're wool. Yeah. They're wool.
There are some great ways to maximize human potential, though, and we'll get right into those.
Okay.
All right, I guess this
Yeah.
is supposed to mean that I'm supposed to push a button here.
What happened to the AI comic?
Yes, there we go. So some basic questions just to kick things off, and then I'll give some hints as we go. So what are these robots doing? And why might we be worried about
It's very specifically a hand job is what they're doing right there.
Yeah.
So I can see.
These look like those hands in those machines you put a quarter in to get the toy. So they'll rip you off no matter what you do. Those are clearly like, malevolent toy arm. I don't know what the hell they are. I know.
But they look like they're playing themselves.
Are those Legos?
Bit
that? That is a pretty
masturbatory.
big insight there.
Are they
Masturbatory?
teenage boy robot arms?
They're playing themselves?
I mean, there's no one playing that game, right? The
assembling-
quarter
they're
game where the
assembling
arm
themselves.
reaches in.
So are you suggesting these robots are pleasuring themselves?
They look like, to me, that game you were describing, but they look like they're playing. There's no human
you-
operator that we can see in the
put
photo.
you put a quarter in and
that's
the
a
robot
great insight.
masturbates, and then you get a toy. Is that what the game is?
I'm
just
trying to
like the
make
real
this
thing.
photo interesting
That is
for
like the real
me,
thing.
personally.
If you give me a quarter, I'll let you know.
Masturbate, you get a
Yeah,
toy at the
fucking
end.
masturbate.
Let's turn it to our audience. Let's ask our audience. What do you guys think these robots are doing? First of all, learning. Ooh. Ooh. They're taking our job.
In
If
fact,
I had
we
a job.
If we combine learning and taking jobs, you've got the whole of it. In fact, right there, what's most interesting, though,
So that's a Eureka?
It's Eureka?
That's a Eureka.
Okay, we announced Eureka!
Should we give it to learning or taking jobs, though?
Both those
Both?
are-
Okay, we'll give them 2 points.
Okay, guys. So, this is my Philip. We're going to pick prizes out of here. You're going to help do it. For this one, since they both won one, we're going to give them these squishy brains.
Squishy brains.
Now, all right, so here comes a brain. Let's see if we can make it happen. And yes, squishy brain won. You lost your job. Next up there. Okay.
Up there.
Learning. Yes, you
Nice,
got it.
yes.
All right.
all right, so the consolation prizes for humanity have been handed out. So what's interesting here is not just that they're learning from one another. So they're watching each other. They've started this task, which is to sort objects, without knowing how to do it. And they're watching each other, so every time one of them makes an advance, the others learn just by watching the others do it. So this is known as reinforcement learning, and it's the kind of deep neural networks that were behind, for example, the system that beat the world Go champion. And what's profound for my work is that this means we'll have robots, in fact we already do, that can visually distinguish crops from weeds and crawl through a field while killing the weeds with fertilizer. So you get conventional
starting a
scale
drug
organic
company.
farming.
Starting a
I gotta
drug
tell you, we're
company.
starting an illegal
Server
drug
status. Service on. There we go. Thank you.
But what's interesting is, in fact, what happens when the system that beats the world Go champion starts playing the stock market.
What if you tell it maximize the amount of money for me, and then it goes and starts killing people for your money?
Well, is that just they get hired by Goldman Sachs, right? That's what happens.
what they do.
I think there are a lot of people that Goldman Sachs hires that might actually fit the
Kill for
people
money.
for a lot of money model. I think just what's interesting here is that these systems are already pushing the limits of what we're able to understand. In other words, we don't understand the solutions that they come up with. So not only are they quickly outperforming us in a number of tasks, as the famous researcher Andrew Ng once said, anything we can do in a few seconds, they can do better, faster, and cheaper. So what does that mean for all of us here?
More Netflix means we get to watch more Netflix.
Yes.
More
Sure.
Netflix.
Netflix and like eat bark
Yeah,
because we can't
exactly.
feed ourselves.
I'm not even going to touch myself in the future. Robots.
No,
better.
robots can do that better than
robots
you
are
can.
better. Fucking watch.
Yeah.
Anybody can.
I just have the I shouldn't even make the gesture. The robot watch me learn.
Yeah, learn.
And
learn,
then gets
and
better over time. And I'm just like
then,
this for the rest of
yeah.
my life. Drool coming
Yeah.
down. Yeah.
This is a rather
pretty much now.
disturbing variant
Yeah.
of the economist's goal
Thanks,
of maximizing
MIT.
productivity.
Yeah.
So hey,
Wait, I want to say something.
Oh.
So Vivienne was actually just on a panel at Techonomy with Ray Kurzweil, and she said this, that if you guys are doing the same work that you do every single day, and you're doing that this week, you're doing that next week, and the next week, your job will get automated. And Vivienne is going to find a way to make your job cheaper and faster, and with use of computer language and computer robotics. And
If you have nieces and nephews training to be radiologists, intervene now. Because AI is already better at doing that diagnostic work than humans are.
yeah, you're gonna get no like electoral votes from the Midwest or anywhere. You're not bringing any jobs back.
The job is just to be rich.
Be
What is that?
rich.
Be rich. I just wake up every day. I just be rich.
Be rich. That'd be
Is
a
that
great
it?
job to
So,
have.
how's robots are going to take over for the president? What's going to go there?
That'd be nice. Well, no, the robots should not imitate our soon-to-be president. I think that would be a bad learning experience.
Why is science spending time on this? Science should be cloning Lee Harvey Oswald right now. I think that's
Whoa! Cutting edge.
what all of our work should be doing right now.
good thing we're not in South Dakota right now.
Yeah, you'd get stoned. Hey, quick, where is this though? Where is this?
So a lot of this work is being done at Stanford, Carnegie Mellon, and Berkeley, are famous sources for most of this research. I personally have affiliations at all of them, so I'm going to ignore anyone else that's doing good work. This particular group, I can't remember, but there's Peter Bell at Berkeley is training robots to fold towels, and that may not sound very impressive, but he does it by literally helping them. Imagine you were taking someone suffering from a stroke and helping them move their arms in the right way, and they learn how to recognize that the towel's dirty and how to fold it and wash it. So great. Who would want to do that work? But that starts to take on some big implications.
Is there anything they shouldn't be doing? I know folding towels is not like Skynet. No one's going to get killed. But, once you go to folding towels, the next step is like lasers coming out of their eyes or something.
Well, there are two big, huge questions. Let's make it three, but I'm going to save one of them for a later slide. First is, what happens if we have autonomous military drones? So they're making their own decisions about who to attack and when to do it. One of the disturbing things is they may well actually make better decisions than we do. But is it still okay to send them out and make those decisions?
Sure.
It's guilt-free. It wasn't me.
It wasn't me. It was the drone. It was the automated drone.
I just pay taxes. I have no idea.
Yeah.
That's
All
awful.
right.
It's awful.
So-
I'm not condoning it.
And the other is a pretty profound statement. For example, I do a lot of work right now in Africa, and if we're to add together all of ag work, all of resource work, all long-haul trucking, all the journalists, all the doctors, what are you going to do with 500 million young men with nothing but free time? And that's not just
So wait,
true of Africa. it's
the
true
robots
here.
are going to take
Folding
over
towels?
journalism now?
They already
will
are.
they-
The vast
how will they be
majority-
able to make up stuff? How is that going to...
Well, there you go. There's another point. The vast majority of articles written today are written by robots. So a
Made up.
company called Narrative Science and another one that's a spin-off of Reuters. So they can turn a box score from sports or a financial release in a company automatically into something that looks like a human-written piece of journalism.
So maybe just have robots read it too. We can just
Yeah,
back away and let them
exactly.
do their thing.
Close the loop.
Close the
Close the
loop.
loop.
I'll
Close
go
the
do. I'll go read my
I'll
name.
be on the couch masturbating watching Netflix.
Yeah, I'll have the robot next to me. Yeah. Okay.
So the implications of this are things that we should be discussing as a society today for our future. And there are places that there's going to be a lot of people that don't have jobs, a lot of people that are out of their work.
Yeah, I don't think there's one reason. I suspect this room has some coherence in its feelings about the election. There isn't one reason, a way that went the way it did, but one of the big factors, which is economic insecurity, whether you're talking about globalization or automation or AI, it's the same sort of effect. And understanding that this sort of thing has consequences. I think this is great. As we're going to go through, I invent AIs, so clearly I'm not against them. But we need people to keep up.
And those people, again, like you've said, are creative, adaptive problem solvers. And that can't be taught in 6 weeks. Whereas before you could take somebody from the farming sector and bring them into a factory and teach them how to do that in 6 weeks. You can't teach somebody.
All right, so now I can launch into my upcoming book, and we're just going to do a reading here for the next 3 hours. So next year I'll have a book coming out called How to Robot-Proof Your Kids. But not to belabor it, but the heart of it is it takes 20 years, if you will forgive the grotesque metaphor, it takes 20 years to build a human being. But it only takes someone like me a couple of years to build a new AI. So what do you do when these incredibly profound, exciting, but disruptive technologies come out and no one ever has the chance to catch their breath and retrain for a new job? The only work that will be interesting at that point, we call it the hyperinflation of work. Every day you're going to show up for a job. By the end of the day, it's going to be a new job. And if that sounds exhausting, well, it sounds exhausting to me. But it's the reality of where we're moving.
But why do we have to work? I don't like that part. Why are we all deciding that we still have to work?
Why can't we all do stand-up comics?
If I could push a button and get a cookie, I'm fine.
Yeah.
For the rest of my life.
Button. I could train a robot to press a button.
Cookie.
Just
I
lay
have
there
some
with my mouth
neuroprosthetics
open.
research you might be interested in volunteering for.
Okay.
Excellent.
This action here, you see this?
That's really profound. Now all I
Thank you.
need is a release form to do some brain surgery.
Okay.
Wasn't there like a study where they took there was a study where they took some rats and they put like electrodes in their brain and they gave them 2 buttons, and one button was orgasm and the other one was food, and all the rats are dead. That's the end of the story. They all starved to death.
Most disturbing and overlooked part of that is that they learned how to read.
Yeah, they learned how to read. Yeah. So one button was orgasm.
If you could eat your orgasm, problem solved.
Yeah, done.
Visit me late at night. We'll see if that's possible.
But so I have a question for the scientist. Do you see humans just turning into like house cats, or do you see us learning to read like the mighty mouse of that study?
No, actually.
I feel like we're going to get left in the dust.
I think the world is right now split into the techno-utopians that think if you just add technology, everything will be magical, and the Luddites that think, God, no, we're not going to allow any of this. Well, first off, it's going to happen, and it should. And some of the stuff we're going to get into will show you why I think it should happen. But if we don't take ownership of the effect it's going to have on everyone, and there's a lot of different discussion about how we should approach that. And one of it is a universal basic income. I know it's popular, I happen to not be a supporter of that, not because I'm a libertarian, but because I'm hard-pressed to believe a world with a handful of billionaires, trillionaires at some point soon will continue to be interested in paying everyone else to do nothing. But I am genuinely concerned. People need purpose. We're going to go into that in some of my other slides. I'm not saying this as a self-help. I'm saying the research is clear. People need to have purpose. And you take that away, they'll go look for it someplace else. I mentioned Africa and those 500 million young men. You know, two social institutions that will be thrilled and thrive under this will be Al-Shabaab and Boko Haram. It has nothing to do with religion, just has to do with people that are looking for something bigger than themselves.
Is the one that's made out of eggplant? What's the one that's made out of eggplant?
Islamic fundamentalist robots might be the next game changer.
We'll put them all out of
You know what I'm
work.
saying?
It's the same job every day, right?
Yeah, you know.
They're just going.
Ali Akbar. What? Am I a bad guy? What? I'm just talking. Should we move on to the next question?
I'm going to move my chair away from
I'm
you
the bad
after
guy.
that recent statement.
Jesus.
All right, before
Feels
anyone's
safer.
Or
career is
whoever you
permanently
worship. I don't
damaged,
care. You worship anyone you want. I don't
Feels
care.
safer
No
over
one listens to me. Okay.
All right, I got tired coming up with clever questions because, as you can see, I didn't bother in the first place. So
Stole
here we
this
go.
from
What's
Jerry
the deal
Seinfeld?
with
Yeah,
these
what's
two
the
maps?
deal
What's
here?
the deal here?
Let's start with the green one. Can I get someone? I mean, feel free to answer both at the same time if you want to. But what do you think these maps are
What
representing?
do you guys think? For marijuana?
Marijuana legalization. That's a good one.
What do you guys think, comedians?
I don't know. I think finance. I'd say electoral. No.
You want to say electoral, but
I just realized. I looked at Alaska and California. I said no.
All right,
Money.
let's have
How
the
the-
audience answer.
Is it-
Do we have any answers? Yes. All right, hold on. Let me bring the mic up.
Is that like political red versus blue state on the right, and then age distribution on the left?
Those are really interesting guesses, but what you're picking up is some really interesting and profound correlations. But that's not what these are fundamentally about.
Is this
All right, hold
RGB
on.
segregation?
yeah.
Something.
Percentage of population in urban versus rural areas?
That also is really interesting, and I think you're picking up on something real that these maps are getting into, but again, those just happen to correlate with what we were looking at.
I'm gonna say it has something to do with AI.
Other ideas? We want
How
to give
about-
you
is
a
it-
prize.
Is Pokemon Go players versus people who have heart disease? That's a correlation. I don't
That's a
know if you've
really
done the
strong
research.
correlation.
It's a very strong correlation.
But if red is negative for heart disease, I think you've missed Texas in that particular layout.
Well, in my view,
So let's drop a hint. Both of them have to do with startups.
Concentration of venture capital.
That's a great answer. It certainly fits this map here very well. Again, it's just a correlate, but it's a really good one.
Yeah, because South Dakota doesn't have venture capital funds.
you have to.
Over here?
1 second.
Average academic level?
Again, we're picking up on all of these deep things
Getting close.
that are fundamentally related.
He said masturbating robots. Am I correct? Yeah.
Well, again, it's a correlate, but I think as we get into
good.
what's going on here,
Higher the academic level, greater the masturbating robots.
yes,
The
that's
PhD.
why you can see MIT and Stanford are disturbingly high. I could believe that there's a pretty...
be at the lab for a little while.
So one last guess.
One last guess. Hold up.
Like online time usage?
Oh, that's interesting.
interesting.
But it's not it. So I'm just going to jump in.
Oh, no prizes. Oh,
Oh,
man.
no.
There's
So what
not
is it?
always going to be prizes in life, but maybe after I go to the first
She's
one.
a harbinger of
people-
cruelty and sadness.
Yes.
No prizes.
I am the house of neuroscience. So let me tell you this one, and one last guess here. So this, we looked at 10 years of census data, 2005 to 2014, and we looked at how the average American moved across the 50 states plus 4 territories, DC, Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands. And then we compared it against the average entrepreneur. Where were you born? Where did you move? And then found a company. And what you're seeing here is, probably unsurprisingly, California, the whole West Coast, New York, Massachusetts, this is largely Chicago here, Denver. You may be surprised, but if you don't know this, Salt Lake City, huge startup cultures. So entrepreneurs are overwhelmingly likely to move from wherever they're born to these states.
I'm a perfect case study. I moved from South Dakota. Look, it's white. And now I'm in California. It's green.
I think you're the only number
you're still white.
in that state.
But there's
Just
something
said
interesting
Alan.
here. I'm going to allow one last guess. So note here differences between these two. California, that's very similar. But look at, for example, Texas and Florida that seem to
South
have
Dakota.
switched. So any guesses what the other map is about?
All right, hold on. We have an answer up here. 1 second. 1 second.
Where they like ended up settling down and raising a family, like where they ended up living permanently.
No. But
This is-
I like
as
the
a-
guess.
As someone from
All right.
Texas, I'm going to say the denominator on this side is number of dickheads.
Dickheads.
I'm gonna go with that.
Is it manufacturing jobs versus other kinds of jobs?
Oh, that's interesting. Again, I think you picked up on a correlate.
Could it be the success rate of the people that move to those places?
Ooh.
That is a good guess.
I feel judged.
So these are all great, and I can see where you're going. But what's interesting is what we did was we then tracked 100. So our entrepreneurial data, we literally tracked 100,599 entrepreneurs over that same 10-year period. Thank you, LinkedIn, for unwillingly sharing that data with me. So we then looked at all what I said, where they moved to, how many jobs their companies created over a 5-year period, how much money they raised. Then I happened to be on the board of an organization called Start Out, which is a national LGBT entrepreneurship group. What you're looking at here is how gay and lesbian entrepreneurs differ from your average straight entrepreneur. And why is that interesting? Well, you can see right away, there are some profound differences here. And it turns out, state by state, if you didn't know this, it is legal to discriminate against gays and lesbians in some states in a business context. The famous saying is, married on Sunday, fired on Monday.
John is currently tying his mic into his beard.
I didn't want to hold it anymore. Robots could do that.
Glad you found a new use for your beard.
Let's see what's happening. Oh, come on, it's so close.
Some profound braiding skills.
I'll get it. It'll happen.
You're from Texas, right?
I'm from Texas, yeah.
So, there you go.
Oh, we don't got a lot of things in Texas. It's real good. It's real good.
So here's what we found. Over that same period of time, we looked at every individual job that was created and lasted 5 years. Over that period, gay and lesbian entrepreneurs created nearly 3 million jobs. Those are net jobs, not the kind of trade-offs you get in big companies. And interestingly enough, because we could model out the difference, this may not look like it, but this is a matrix, and this is a matrix. We could then do a statistical model to say, well, what if gay and lesbian entrepreneurs were just like regular entrepreneurs? Where would the jobs that they created have been founded? And it turns out nearly 1.1 million jobs would have been founded in Indianapolis and Raleigh-Durham, but they came here instead, almost certainly because of the effects of discrimination.
Weather's better as well.
Yes, although
Disagree
what's
about New
interesting is and then let's break out Texas. When we just look at Austin and Dallas Dallas and Houston versus Austin, we see the same thing happen. Even though it's the same state, and even though they have the same laws, Austin is profoundly attractive to gay and lesbian entrepreneurs, while Dallas and Houston, they can't wait to get out. So why is that interesting? It's interesting because when you start to add up the numbers of all the jobs created by gay entrepreneurs and women and entrepreneurs of color, pretty soon you're counting in a state like California, where supposedly we do everything wrong. The taxes are too high, the regulation's too much. I founded 7 startups. I hate the regulation. But strangely enough, our economy is so great. Well, it turns out what our modeling tells us is if you truly want to build a healthy, growing economy, you need to build an inclusive economy.
Yes. Applause break.
And it's not a social justice statement, even though I might believe it to be. It's simply the truth of the economics. People go where they will be celebrated. Yeah. So all of these are really interesting correlates about the time people spend, where jobs, factory jobs are, all these sorts of things. That's because these are the cultures that are attractive to creative people. Not just gays and lesbians, but they're a great canary in a coal mine because they're the one meaningful minority group, meaningful by size, that can be legally discriminated against.
So couldn't the blue states here create robots to take over the red states? Maybe change?
Well, that is an option.
Okay.
Or we could pacify them. Okay. And I think you've already identified what the appropriate strategy for that is.
Masturbating robots. Got it.
Masturbating, yes, indeed. We're there.
We're there.
Cool. Shall we?
Shall we?
Okay.
So what do you guys think, comedians? What are these things, and how do they relate
waves?
to...
They are waves.
Oh, I thought they were tapeworms for a moment.
You're absolutely true that these are waves.
Okay.
There's something resonant. There are resonant frequencies of something.
That is also absolutely true. Brains are definitely involved, but they are not brain waves in any sense of EEG or local field potentials.
So we will ask the audience now. Yes. All right. Hold on. We haven't heard from you up here. Coming up.
Are they electronic signals sent from the brain to prosthetics?
That is an interesting guess. In fact, in some ways it's a good it's a good answer to the next question. So it's a very good answer to the next question. Hopefully you all have anterograde amnesia. So these are waves.
What?
They are about a resonance frequency.
Vivienne, should we still have some more guesses?
Yes, so guess away.
Okay.
Well, I happened to be looking away when the answer was up there, so voice patterns?
That actually is a great guess. It's also somehow terribly wrong, but it's also still a great guess.
Yeah.
All right, we have.
I mean, it's really, you're right in the heart of it.
Does it have to do with binaural beats?
Binaural beats. Yes.
That's Dr. Dre. I know
Dr.
what we're
Dre,
talking about.
Dr.
Yeah.
Dre's
His new
failed
headphones
startup.
are called binaural beats. They're $10,000 if you want to buy them.
Yeah, hold on. Right here.
Is this training iterations for like a deep neural network?
All right, that is a great guess. So if
Is
we
that
put
Eureka?
a few of these together, I think if we put together the resonance frequencies and a video of neural network learning, we've got the right answer.
Yeah, let's give
Eureka!
Eureka! All right, guys. What should we give? Look in the pile of goodies here. Not the shirt. Maybe hold off on that.
You guys go deliver.
What should we give here? Take a look.
Can we
What are
point
those
out how
drugs
many
at the
wong
bottom?
answers he had, just to give
Oh,
us
yeah.
a...
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
give
I
him
mean,
a
you just
give
keep
him a
throwing
squishy
fish
brain
in a
then.
barrel.
Give him a
It's
squishy
like,
brain. He
does
got
it
so many
count as
wrong.
much?
Yeah, here's a
It's so
squishy.
many- yeah, get another squishy brain.
Feel good about yourself. Okay, here we
It's the fuck you
Thank
present.
you, Matt.
of
Great,
presents.
no, great job.
Good job.
Good job.
Keep it up.
He got it.
Uh,
Don't listen to.
Apparently the Jakob Creutzfeldt's brain for you. But it's also worth noting that the human speech is good in here also. So this was some graduate work that I did way back when, where I designed a system that learned how to hear on its own. And we took a computer and I wandered around. Any of you, it sounded like there may have been a CMU alum, so I wandered around South Park and North Park in the Pittsburgh area. And the thing literally learned to hear by listening to the waves, the wind through the trees, and the sounds of bird songs and everything. And what you're seeing is the process of it learning. So every one of these maps roughly onto, we have single cells in our ears. It's called the spiral ganglion neurons. And those are the cells that transmit, they turn essentially the waves inside our ear, inside our cochlea, into neural signals. They fire. And what we found was we could build an artificial network that could learn how to hear the same way that we mammals hear. And in fact, scarily so, when these reach near the end of their learning cycle, you can take them and lay them right on top of estimates of the response function of these auditory nerves. So they've learned a resonance frequency, although it turns out they've learned something even more complex and interesting than that, because they learned a bunch of higher order statistics as well, beyond just the second order. And why this is so exciting to me is it was my introduction to neuroprosthetics. So if we built a system that could learn to hear on its own, people kept saying, wow, couldn't you build a great MP3, better music compression? The answer is that I could not give a shit about MP3s. Although, yes, it is actually better because we tested it. But this is something that really did excite
What
me.
happens to that little doodad on the previous one?
Oh, on the bottom, that's
no, not that signal noise ratio, but the one right above it. Actually, it doesn't.
The
it doesn't
one right
actually
above it
pop
starts as you may see, these are time.
Yeah.
So they're actually on totally different time scales. This is an extremely long, low frequency one stretching hundreds of milliseconds, And this one up here, I think each of these are something like 10 millisecond ranges. So this is a very high frequency, much like the cells in our ears that hear high frequencies. This is a very low frequency, and what's interesting is it's learning and growing and adapting all on its own. And this was 15 years ago. And it's doing it not through some amazing biological process. It's doing it very simply the same way engineers would do it. It's maximizing the signal to noise transmitted internally, and it's minimizing the coding cost. So boring stuff, but then you get this, which is, so this is an infant with, this is an infant with a cochlear implant. And there's some controversy over using cochlear implants in the deaf community. But one thing that is incontrovertible is you put this on a baby early in their life, it's a profoundly deaf baby, and when they grow up, you have a hard time telling whether they were ever deaf. On the other hand, you put something like this on someone my age, and it's very possible that after a few weeks, I will turn it off. Because if you really want to understand what it sounds like, it's like listening to the world through a garbage disposal. And the result of that being, if your brain is old and it can't learn and adapt to it, it just gives up. So we built a system. We thought, well, what if we could make a cochlear implant? Here, this is essentially a hearing aid. This is a magnetic inductor, and you may be able to tell from the picture, there's a chronically implanted system starting here that goes and puts wires directly into the apicranial nerve, the auditory nerve, stimulates them, and for this baby, they'll grow up to learn how to hear very much like we do. But what if you're older? Well, we thought, what if we built a cochlear implant that could learn how to hear all on its own and adapt over time and make it easier? And it turns out we ran experiments, and people that got this within 20 minutes were able to hear 50% more words than using a traditional system. Nowadays, my interest is actually this.
Wow, make gifts at giftsoup.com.
Yes.
We're sponsored, we get whatever we can take. This looks like a Stephen Hawking bartending class or something. You know what I'm saying?
That's exactly.
I'm the bad guy here.
Actually, if somebody could give me a beer, that'd be lovely right now.
This dude's stoked in the back. He's like, I'm gonna get this in there.
He should be stoked. That woman at the time that this video was made hadn't moved anything on her body in her adult life, hadn't fed herself.
Wow.
For something like 10 or 20 years. And you see that box on the top of her head? That has a micro drive in it. There's literally wires going down out of that box into her motor cortex. They are reading the activity patterns of her imagining that she's moving those paralyzed arms. That robotic limb next to her is being driven.
You feel like a dick now for your comments? You feel like a dick for your comments?
Deaf baby, mobile woman, I'm not making any jokes for the next 10 minutes.
Again.
I'm quiet.
Robotic Islam? Come on,
Wanna be liked.
Kevin.
Okay.
Throw in an Allah Akbar. Okay, so, and again, this video, my earlier one was 15 years old. This one's 10 years old. This is not cutting edge research. So cutting edge research, go look up neural dust. It's the coolest stuff. We're looking at a world possibly where we shouldn't be worried about super intelligent AIs. Maybe we should be thinking about what happens if people's intelligence becomes a function of how much money their parents have. Buy your kid not a better education, but a better brain.
If only they had done that with Trump.
Could we get a discount?
If only that was available at the time.
Sorry, are you still in touch with her? Did she have to get a job now that she has arms to move around?
So this was done through the Donahoe Lab at Brown University, I believe, and this is, nowadays, there are groups doing work with this at UC Berkeley, at Stanford, at MIT. US Army is funding research into powered armor. There are people that can walk because of direct neural stimulation of their legs.
Server unavailable.
Yeah, that's the great, yeah.
Well, it's especially important for if you were born with this disability, because that's really when we start empathizing, is when it happens to us or when it happens to somebody that we love. Because when it happens to other people, we don't find it to be that interesting. But when it happens to us, we're like, please make these technologies for me, please.
Absolutely.
I care about other people. You just expose yourself as a dick is what just happened. Here, I don't know
me?
about this. Yeah, all of you.
Oh, yeah, sure. Let's see if we can get that PowerPoint slide back up. Boom.
All right, we're
Yes.
good. One last thing to think about with respect to this, one of my favorite early findings in this research, so the original work on this was done with monkeys, and they wouldn't arbitrarily paralyze them. They'd just tie their arms down, and they'd learn to control a robotic limb. Here's the coolest part. When you untie their arms, with a little more training, they can move all three independently of one another.
So,
Damn, no comment.
what is this woman doing now? Is she like just bitch slapping people with a robot arm? She's imagining. She's like, no.
I don't know.
Her
She went
pant
full
looks
Dr.
pretty
Octopus.
strong, actually. If you.
Yeah, I would just like crush that guy's skull. Like I am alive now. You know, just no. All right. I got nothing. I have
bad
nothing
person.
on this.
Bad
I have nothing
person.
on
You're a
these
bad
images.
person.
I'm a bad human. The Islamic
That's why
robot
we're
that didn't
friends.
fly.
All right, let's give out some
No.
more presents.
Next question.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, I will fully admit that this is a challenging one based solely on the photo.
Oh.
But have fun with it. How is this kid like a Nest
They
thermometer?
were both poorly designed.
Thermostat? And how does that relate to the Olympics?
Did you buy him on Amazon? No? This guy looks like he'd sell me drugs on hate. You know, he's like, just try this. I'm like, I don't know, dude.
What is
It's like-
a Nest
I'm on a
thermostat?
journey. It's it controls different, like temperature and different things in your home. Yeah, right.
You know, it's a thermostat that supposedly has
Oh.
some machine learning in it.
Machine
Because
learning.
the Chinese stadium was shaped like a nest for the Olympics.
Is that why is it true?
I'm as
It is true.
dumbfounded as I've been all night.
I don't know.
He's wearing swimming goggles.
He has some interesting fashion sense.
There's
Yeah.
something about internal
Like a-
temperature regulation and
Yeah.
It's a good guess, but this one I knew was going to need to throw out, so I'm going to throw out a big one here.
How's it relate to the Olympics?
Diabetes.
Swimming. What is it?
Diabetes.
Diabetes.
that man is Wilford Brimley.
I
That
can't
is
make
what-
jokes about kids and diabetes. You're like sending me down the wrong
After
avenue.
everything
my
that you
son.
said, that's where you
I'm
draw
trying
the
to
line.
walk back so they like me again. That's all
This
it is.
photo is actually of my son who has type 1 diabetes.
Okay, see?
Do your harshest
No,
Islamic
no.
fundamentalist
You
masturbation
You'll
joke you
accept
can.
it. They won't. So we're skipping that point. That's
Oh.
That is a really good guess. It's so close.
Hold on.
How
is
is
this
this
kid
kid's?
like a Nest?
Oh yeah, there's an
thermostat?
S in there. Look at
How is
that.
this kid's? Yes, sorry.
You get a grammar Eureka moment for that.
Actually, you're gone now, sir. You have to leave.
Yeah.
Does anybody have a guess?
You got an internet troll in the
The clue is
Get him out of
diabetes.
here.
Wait, we're gonna ask somebody that hasn't had the opportunity yet.
How does it relate to the Olympics?
The insulin pump
so sweet.
learns to regulate his blood sugar.
I think that deserves an award.
Yeah.
Eureka!
What are we going to give?
Give him these papers.
Oh, the papers. Okay, this is an Army
homework.
test. It's an IQ test from the Army from like the early 20th century. Huh? If you pass this, you could die in the trenches. A lot of great questions, like Velvet Joe appears in advertisements of tooth powder, dry goods, tobacco, or soap. Easily gettable, not culturally specific. So I think this is great. See
you
how
get
well
a
you
bunch
do.
of homework.
Yeah, I got homework. See if you can pass a 100-year-old IQ test. Made by the Army.
And to think that they were confused about how racial bias might creep into their
I have
testing.
no idea. I know who Velvet Joe is. He's a velvety dude.
All right, so to follow up on the answer, so your pancreas, more specifically the islets of Langerhans that produce insulin, is basically like a thermostat. Your blood sugar goes up, it turns on and releases insulin. Your blood sugar goes down. It actually doesn't turn on, it's like it turns on the heater. So air conditioning and then heating. So you release glycogen, you get glucagon release, and so forth. So that helps to keep your blood sugar just tight. By the way, if you do Jamba Juice in the morning, you're on your way to type 2 diabetes. So 5 years ago, my son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Came completely out of left field for my wife and I. And what was shocking wasn't simply the 4 days over Thanksgiving that we spent at Oakland Children's Hospital. It was actually a month later where we brought in a ton of data. We started collecting everything. We put a Fitbit on him. We were doing a continuous glucose monitor, an insulin pump, all sorts of equipment, because we're both scientists, and yes, we experiment on our kids. We're actually writing a book right now called The Experiment in the Crib, 10 experiments you can mad scientist on your own baby.
Well, I want to see your kids' memoirs when they grow up. How my parents fucked with me.
Are the royalties gonna pay for their therapist later, or is that just?
I think they're just going to have to own the fact
there we
that
go. That's for sure.
Their life is disturbed, and hopefully they'll enjoy that later.
They could do comedy. They could do stand-up.
Yeah.
Yes.
I will open for them. I know as far as I can get. I know where I go.
So we brought all of this data in, probably 15,000 data points, and they were angry with us for wasting their time. So dropping back to our previous question we had, if anyone ever responds, what am I supposed to do with this data over the course of their job? That's a perfect example of a job that isn't going to last much longer. So I thought it was shocking. They gave me a sheet of paper. They asked me to write down 15 numbers, 5 days, morning, afternoon, evening blood glucose levels. We had literally thousands. So I built a system. I hacked all of his devices, broke several federal laws, apparently, and redirected all the data from those medical devices and Fitbit to my server, built a model that predicted about an hour into the future whether his blood glucose levels will go high or low, and then had it pushed to my Google Glass.
I don't think robots will replace us. I think you will replace us.
Nerd alert.
Yeah.
There was a time in my life I might have been offended at being called a nerd, but now I'm awesome. So.
It's coming from a physicist, so it's
yeah.
So here's what is actually one of the coolest things. I mean, the coolest thing in the world is inventing a treatment for your son's life-threatening chronic illness. Everyone should have that opportunity, not the chronic illness part, though. But the coolest thing was, so there exists something called an artificial pancreas, and it really is like a traditional thermostat. It picks up if your blood sugar goes high. About 20 minutes later, it turns on and tries to lower it down, and it's better than the regular kind of insulin pump. But I recently visited Eli Lilly in Indianapolis to talk about things completely unrelated to this, and they took me aside and introduced me to a young man who is extending my research by building an artificial pancreas with a deep neural network to do the exact same predictive work we were doing here. It's better than a biological pancreas. So how does this relate to the Olympics? This was the big unanswerable question. Relates to the Olympics because pretty soon the Paralympics are going to be a lot more interesting than the regular Olympics.
Wow. Cyborg Olympics.
Also,
I think.
they murder their girlfriends, so pretty good. No, the dude with no legs. The no legs dude. Come on.
Oscar Pistorius.
Deep cut. Threw it out there.
Let's not do any profiling. He does not represent the rest of us cyborgs in the world.
Yeah, he was not.
Who's a dick now, John?
Yeah, he wasn't a stand-up guy.
Yeah,
didn't have a leg to stand on. Did not have a leg to stand on.
Didn't have legs like that
Thought
joke.
he was going to have a leg up on the competition, but didn't have a leg to stand on.
So you're saying artificial organs with deep neural networks can help our bodies function better than we do today with our regular biological organs?
So here's one of the fascinating things we found. Your pancreas, to an approximation, just responds to your body in the moment. Does it in some very sophisticated ways, but that's what it does. When I was building the model for my son's diabetes, I found out that if he was low the yesterday morning, it affects the probability of what his blood glucose levels will be tonight. Now, there's nothing fundamental about that. How could it possibly know that he'd eat more or less? But it turns out those blood glucose levels don't just say something about insulin. They they tell a story about him and his behaviors and how he leads his life. It's a rich story. And when you mix these amazing new technologies with the capabilities of things like artificial pancreas, you end up in a world where I guess you can do jamba juice every morning and not see those blood glucose spikes because it'll know. And it will start giving you insulin before you ever even go to the store to buy it.
When you start thinking about jamba juice, it prepares your body.
We have a comment from the audience or question.
Actually, as it turns out, even with the regular biological pancreas, as you start thinking about jamba juice, it might already be getting ready.
Really? It's getting ready right now. Because he's planted it in me right now. Protein.
I have a
16.
question.
Yeah.
Why aren't you training dogs to do this? Dogs can tell what happens, so are you doing the same thing for dogs?
So dogs have this amazing ability. You can train them up, and amongst the many amazing things service dogs can do, they can smell low blood sugar. And in fact, there's a paper just published last year where they finally figured out what it was they were smelling when they did it.
Is it like that they're smelling?
Yeah, actually, it is related to ketones. So ketones are produced when you're breaking down protein, and because it gets complicated. But when you have insulin, you're not getting sugar inside your cells, and so you start breaking down you to stay alive. But what is actually fascinating, what is complicated, is that these dogs are genuinely challenging to train, and at 4 years old when he couldn't have maintained that training. So they only give him to teenagers. Now what's important to let on
more responsible?
is please don't tell my landlord that he's too young to have a diabetes dog, because that's what she thinks our dog is. And they're not allowed to ask.
Wow.
It's a service animal. But they're amazing and they're wonderful. But wouldn't it be great to not have to carry around an insulin pump, to not have to have your service dog with you all the time? I love dogs.
So these robots are stealing jobs from dogs as well now?
You will never work as a pancreas again.
Oh, wow. Jesus Christ. Okay. Yeah.
So, so what's my process in order to get an artificial organ?
I can make it happen for you today.
Yeah.
You want an artificial organ? I can make it happen.
The question is, do you want to order it from a guy that looks like that? Or
he tried to put his microphone in his beard. Thank you for your hand.
Artificial organ right here for you, buddy.
So artificial pancreas are actually in human testing right now, not the smart kind, but if you will, the dumb kind. They're in trials right now. They're getting great initial results. It's really exciting to someone like me because they've been telling diabetic kids for decades that a cure is right around the corner, and we might really be near on this one.
But is it gonna? We have to have an iPhone update for our pancreas, where it's.
Well, let me point out an element of this story that may have been glossed over. I hacked my son's medical devices. So what starts happening if you'd be stupid as a healthy individual to not get an artificial pancreas because it just works better? But now you have something inside you that you need to pay a monthly service fee for.
Right. All right.
And then we could hack into it and then charge the people and then tell them if they don't pay us, like a little scheme where if you don't, I'm going to give you lots of insulin or no insulin.
Well, if I could watch videos on my pancreas, I think I'd be fine paying it a monthly.
Your neck's going to be very. Your neck's going to be
like
very
my pancreas
tilted.
comes out of my body.
Do you
my
know
torso.
where your pancreas is at? I mean, right now. Do you know
sure
where?
What if
hang out
Russia
like this.
hacks all of our pancreases?
Then we won't have to live through a Trump presidency. Very good.
I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah. Are there other organs that operate similarly that you're looking to hack?
I'm actually going to touch on a couple of other things I've been working on. But in this vein, there are a number of endocrinological systems that you could imagine could follow similar patterns. This one is interesting because we get such a clear signal in terms of the impact of insulin and blood sugar and that relationship. But you could imagine certain other types of endocrinological patterns, for example, sex-related hormones or other things that follow patterns across some time period that might actually work more effectively if they were smart.
So ultimately, you go to like Amazon.com or like Prime Pancreas
Prime
or something.
Pancreas?
Yeah, get it in 2 days. I need it now. I'm going to go to Jamba Juice in 2 days. I'm thinking of it right now.
Need it.
Prime, 1-day delivery drone.
Actually, what I was thinking
Puts it in the
drone's a
open,
great
puts
idea.
it.
Are you allowed to eat your old pancreas? That's what I actually want.
I'll
I
put
had
it-
some sweetbreads. I had sweetbreads the other day. If I could
Jesus.
eat my own pancreas, I'd try it out.
What about like on the fireplace, like above it? Say, hey, remember that
You mean
retarded
like
thing?
stuffed?
Yeah.
You mean like
That
stuffed
thing doesn't
above
work.
the fireplace?
Yeah. Check out this one.
And then you chase the kids around with it. Ugh.
I'm just like
I love
downing
Christmas.
sugar. It's like, no,
All right,
I don't
so
need
I've
food.
got you guys beat. If it's not completely obvious, I went through gender transition, and for a while, I just thought it'd be the funniest thing to have a jar of formaldehyde with a peeled hot dog just sitting behind me.
That's funny.
Never say anything, just see how people respond.
Oh, you
to it.
dark. You dark.
Is there an olive in there too? What's going on? Did you have that? Did you do that?
All right, one more question.
Come on. What?
I
think
can
it's
make
a
it
great-
happen for you.
it's a
I got a
great
jar
joke.
of formaldehyde right here.
Yes. Quick question. I know we've been on this topic for a while. Has that been tried on people with pancreatic cancer? Because there are a lot of people dying of that. So why hasn't that been already?
So let me talk about my approach to things, which is I dabble in a lot of different fields, and my goal with my work is just to show that it can be done, to put pressure on bigger companies. I personally am not going to finance a 10-year study into this sort of stuff. But what is exciting is that it's actually worked. I've had discussions with Medtronic and their engineers after I came up with this, and sure enough, they have a predictive, what's called the continuous glucose monitor, and now Eli Lilly is extending this work. So really, I think what it amounts to, for my approach to this, is if you can go and show these companies, in a sense, show the families that this work, then you can't put them off anymore. There's a hashtag, particularly in the diabetes community, called We Are Not Waiting. And people started just building and hacking these things themselves because it was clear it could be better. But there just wasn't a financial drive for the companies to build it. We know what can be done. If everyone knows what can be done, then they can't hide behind, someday.
The National Institute of Health just doesn't get enough money from us in order to build on these things. I mean, the Dr. June Yoon on the last episode taught us that the Halloween and Valentine's Day amount of money we spend on candy is more than the National Institute of Health gets every single year.
Yeah, well, it also helps
Who
fuel
uses
the
health
diabetes.
in
Trump
that
will
one?
fix that. Don't worry.
Yeah. Make it great again.
So we're on question 4. We got
Let's
6
go.
more questions.
Ooh, comedians, what
Oh,
does
wow.
this heat map represent? Ooh, that looks like New York.
I'm going to predict we're going to need some hints on this one, but let's see what you can do.
I know where I lived in New York. Oh no.
How might it save a life?
Tight pants. It's got to be. It's got the density.
I don't know. I think there's like some sort of disease
Tight
on
pants.
this Manhattan. What does this represent?
What's the Lower
know.
East Side and then the Upper?
I don't know. Places I've been on Tinder dates when I lived in Manhattan. It's
That's,
sad.
yeah,
too.
that's what they were following you around doing, Kevin.
Yeah, I'm
Way to
sure they
go,
were.
Fucking narcissists.
Advanced. Okay. All right.
There's red, yellow, orange, and blue. And purple. Oh. It's like
Is this a heat map of douchebaggery in New York City?
Neither metaphorically nor technically.
Ah, pity.
Why is I have a question though associated with this. Why are there some areas that don't have coloring? That's a question.
All right, so here's a hint. It's because that person didn't go there.
Okay.
Maybe anyone has an idea.
All right, audience. Let's see here. Okay,
I
we
still
have one up
think
here.
we're going to need at least one more hint to make this work.
Places where Mick Jagger has had sex.
Oh. Oh.
So the blue is missionary, and I'm not certain what to make of the color
Threesomes
coding.
are red.
Is this like the different degrees of gentrification at certain areas? So like red is heaviest, and then yellow is don't know, second.
I like the guess. Completely and totally off topic, but so again.
Let's have you give a hint.
Think about this is one person as they're moving through the city, and we're picking up on some interesting signal about them. In fact, a signal, hint, 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 that might save a life.
All right.
I was thinking along the lines of infection. An infectious disease or something, that a virus or something that somebody is carrying, and how that might save a life or lives? No? Maybe?
It's definitely health related.
All right.
Is it heartbeat?
The last guess was Craig Spencer's movement, the doctor who had Ebola.
Oh, it's a good guess, but here's an additional hint: mental health.
All right, one sec.
Levels of stress for the person during.
That, I think, deserves a prize.
All right, Eureka. Stress.
Get some stickers.
Yeah.
All right,
some
guys.
Positive word stickers.
Positive words.
How perfect
to
is that?
alleviate the
feel better.
mental stress that you
Yeah,
have
because you
during
are
the
a
day.
winner. It's scratch and sniff too.
Ooh.
You look at
Well,
that.
no.
She's
Give
not
those
coming
back.
down
Give
for
those
that
back. Give
prize.
those back.
Don't touch them. All right,
I
so
wonder if there's a John's beard scent in the
find
back.
out. So yeah, reduce your
Nacho.
Stress.
It's Nacho
Nice.
today.
Smell
Nacho
those
scent.
on Muni.
That would be interesting. Scratch and sniff against
Congratulations.
humanity.
That's a horrible combination.
That's a horrible combination.
Read those cards.
Okay, to take this one step further, I sit on the board of a small company in New York. Their goal was to build a technology for mobile phones that could passively track your mood states. And they have their own business plan that's perfectly fine, and we'll set that aside. When they asked me to join their board, I said yes, if you'll let me build a system that can predict manic episodes in bipolar sufferers. So what you're seeing here is one of their employees at the time came to me in confidence and said, I have bipolar. You can use my data. And we tracked this person over time, looking at their movement patterns, a variety of metrics right off of your phone that pick up on issues around stress, other things as well. And it turned out that we could see signals of an oncoming manic episode well above chance, as much as 3 to 4 weeks ahead of time. Now that turns out to not be completely surprising. There's a body of research that shows you can take people with a genetic predisposition into a lab, give them a battery of tests every week, expensive, time-consuming, but you can pick up on the evidence of that first episode, the very first manic episode, up to 6 to 8 weeks beforehand. So we thought, what if you could just do it with a phone for anybody? And they could just carry it around, and they could pre-specify a trusted confidant, maybe more than one, a sister, a doctor, a best friend, and you get a message, high probability of a manic episode in the next 3 weeks, the next 4 weeks. Our goal was a month ahead of time.
Gonna go party with Joe this week.
Yes. So it turns out in this case, what we're seeing are some spaces which were low probability of a manic episode when this person spent time in the blue areas. And in the red areas, we see high probability, and the yellow essentially was neutral, and then the non-colored are places that they just didn't visit during the time we were tracking them.
Isn't this a map saying move out of New York? You know what I'm saying?
Do you know where she lived? Like on the
Lower East Side and where John Lennon got shot are the
I
places
do, but I'm
that
not
didn't
going to
set
divulge
off.
Oh yeah, I
this
didn't
person
want
lived.
like her address.
Like Fulton Avenue down
I
there in
actually
Brooklyn.
do know, and interestingly, that falls in a neutral space because for them, about half of sufferers, medication doesn't work. And so this person's solution was simply to lock themselves in their room and have their loved one just basically keep an eye on them while they spent the next several days completely out of control.
Like a
locked in their
werewolf, like a
bedroom.
werewolf situation.
Yeah, so the thing is, whether it started there or not, they would end up there, and so we lost discriminative insight from that space.
So where else can this be applied? So blood glucose, manic episodes, where else can this be applied?
Well, the specific life-saving component here, to preload that answer to that question, 25% of severe sufferers go on to kill themselves.
Yeah, the depressive state is the one,
Yeah. So we see these massive crashes after the manias. You have suicide, job loss, divorce, institutionalization. And of course, same thing with major depression. Same thing with a number of stress-related illnesses. There's a lot of moral implications. What does it mean to track people over time? I'm talking about doing this with someone's permission, but we actually did a project where we looked at a whole bunch of data of people riding the MTA, the subway system. Awesome. And we could clearly see people that were having manic episodes.
I think like 70.
But we couldn't tell anyone.
1 second.
I mean, if you know someone is bipolar, they're gonna...
Doesn't have anything to do with them. And the map is just a way that I could create a picture for you so that you could look at it and answer a question. I guess you could look at the map and say, hey, if you go here, you're going to die. Forget about that.
How can you, if they're in this state, how can you prevent them from going into stand-up comedy?
Yeah, that's what we really want to know.
Yeah, if they're in that depressive state and they say, I have a great dick joke, like how do you stop them from...
Kevin, let's move on to the next question.
Yeah, every time he says a joke from now on, can you just turn to him and say, can we move on, Kevin? Can we really move on? Thank you.
All right, why is this image unique, and how does it tie to autism?
Obama.
Who has autism here? Is it that dude?
It's the one on the left.
You kind of need it to stand there for like 24 hours straight.
Why is he blurry? Is he Bigfoot? Is Obama actually Bigfoot? Can he not be captured in...
It's the only unattractive picture of Obama that there is.
Yeah, I don't know how this happened.
Wow.
I can drop a big hint here if you'd like.
Yes. Is he dancing?
I took the photograph, and immediately before the photo was taken, I said the following words, the first words I spoke to the President of the United States. Okay, Glass, take a picture. Any guesses about what makes this picture unique? Yep, it's definitely I am told by Google, the only Google Glass photo ever taken of the president.
Wow.
He thought I was a complete and total crazy person. So I wore a fluorescent blue computer on my face to a swanky White House party. The reason, by the way, I did that is because I was in DC. My son was just south of here in Brisbane, and I got a message that said, Felix is going to go low in the next half hour. And I sent a text to my sister who was taking care of him to give him some crackers, and he didn't go low. So that was me with my superpower as a mom treating diabetes. But there's more you could do with Google Glass than get messages about diabetes. So here is my big hint for the other, because otherwise you're never going to get there. When he was looking at me, as we were introduced by the Secret Service, he didn't look that happy. He looked at me and just shook his head. He was so disappointed at my terrible fashion sense.
Probably because he has empathy. Like, is it an eye contact thing that could be with Google Glass? Is that what the tie to autism is?
He's not shaking your hand in this photo.
No, he's shaking my wife's,
Oh.
Who had the good sense not to wear a security-busting live camera on her face.
Yeah.
I don't think we prepared you well enough because every question needs hints for the audience to answer.
Oh, well, this is no problem.
Okay, let's see if we can get it. Who here had the answer? Yes? All right, 1 second.
So people with autism sometimes have trouble translating faces and the way that you...
Bam! Eureka!
Nailed it. Eureka, everybody.
Nice.
Round of applause.
Great
answer.
Give her the Noam Chomsky. This is good.
All
give her
right.
the Noam Chomsky.
You just won a Noam Chomsky finger puppet.
Oh.
There he is. You don't need to tell me what you're going to do with them, but...
Yeah.
It's also magnetic. It can stick on your fridge.
No, I stick only with reality. So
Also, can we, the people that corrected the grammar, is it the same dude? Did you correct the grammar earlier? No, I'm just fucking with you. I'm just trying to fuck with somebody. Don't worry about it.
Fine.
All right, so the picture is just my desperate need to show off my ego by having the photo I took of the president. But what was interesting is that we later built a system for Google Glass to read people's facial expressions. So
Server
this,
status.
This was some work that I had done earlier in my career and thought, here is a good repurposing. So yes, I could look out over the audience with my the Google Glass, much as I'm looking at the president here, and I could pull up your credit scores, your Facebook profile, your Tinder profile.
Grindr.
A grinder, if you will. I don't judge in public. But instead of thinking about what could people do with this, let's think about, wow, what could people do with this? And in this case, it is take someone who can't read a facial expression, a very common symptom of autism spectrum, and give them the superpower of being able to learn that foreign language. And by comparison, the current state of the art are flashcards with cartoon faces on them. So imagine instead, in natural interactions with other people, the system, the camera, reads your face, extracts what's called the facial action code, computes the emotion, and then writes it on the screen. And it turns out not only can these kids learn how to read facial expressions, but in fact, when they do so, it increases their empathy, their ability to understand the motivations of other people.
How many people have the can't recognize face deal going on as well? Because that seems like an obvious.
You mean
case.
How many prosopagnosia? You mean
yeah. But I call it can't recognize a face deal. That's my scientific term.
That's too much Latin for the audience.
Yeah. So prosopagnosia is very rare. Typically is associated with strokes, but not always. And it's a pretty profound thing. What's interesting is prosopagnosia is, to be explicit, the inability to recognize people by their faces. What's interesting is you could recognize them by their voices, you could recognize them by the movements of their bodies. So you'll have a dad that can't distinguish his kids until they start running around, and then suddenly the way they move allows him to distinguish who they are. So it would be possible to build this. It'd be a much smaller population than for autism. But you might imagine a variety of domains in which people could use a little boost. In some ways, it might be nice to know if
their social security numbers or how much income they have, right?
Well, for the scam you described to me earlier today, but for I don't know. Maybe it would be nice to be able for people to know that at the bar that you're really not interested because they're just not reading your signal.
Red flag.
I wrote a little app for the Google Glass, and it was called Spank Bank, and it just it took a picture every time I would just yell out Google Glass Spank Bank, and then it would take a picture for later.
Sweet.
Yeah.
You sleep alone at night?
I do sleep alone at night. I'm gonna have a robot do the work for the Spank Bank stuff.
Yeah, just a projector screen on the ceiling there.
So that's a huge upgrade in quality from flashcards to
She's working on this.
facial recognition
You get together.
software.
That was his segue. He was like, we're leaving John's statement.
Yeah.
He's coming back to reality.
Yeah. Spank hard drive, maybe.
What else can that facial recognition software be used for? How else could people with ailments?
We're going to come back to that for a big finale. So at some point, I may start just hitting, we may have to go into speed round here.
Speed round.
All right. So what is is it possible even to literally compute the cost? And when you're out in the job market, the difference between being Joe and being Jose.
So it says, what is the cost of being Joe instead of Jose instead of Joe? And how can we measure that? Can't meritocracy fix this?
Well, Jose has a different name. There's that.
He's actually slightly larger on the left, just saying. He's a bigger dude.
Is this a game where we have to guess 5 differences between
there's
Jose and
there's
Joe?
an article on the right that tells you the answer.
Well, wait a second. Adrian Karaskil. I don't trust a name like that. I'm not going to read that article.
Karaskil.
That's not a.
Yeah,
take that all as a big hint. Read all you want. What I want is give me a dollar value. What is the actual cost of being Jose instead of Joe working in the U.S. job market?
Well, it depends. If you're in California,
are there any Jose's here or Joes here? A lot more than that baseball.
Are there any
Jose's?
Jose's?
More. That's
Are there
correct.
any Joes?
Hey, it looks like there might be some.
All right, audience,
If
let's
your
go.
name
Who
is
hasn't
Joe, you
answered
can't
yet?
get a job anymore.
All right,
We have an answer.
Is it an annual cost, like let's say 15,000?
It turns out it can be annualized. Big hint, I computed it in one lump sum. But there are ways of estimating on an annualized basis. And it changes, of course, as your career matures and you move along. There might be different costs associated with that. So let me give you a little backstory, and then we'll get some more guesses. So as you're reading here, this was a viral post from this guy named Jose Zamora, who claimed that he drops the S out of his name and goes from getting no responses to his resume to getting job offers.
Hoey.
Okay, so he got rid of the
I'd
accent
hire
as
a
well.
hoe, you know what I'm saying?
So USA News and World Report calls me up when this goes viral and says, is this real? And there's a ton of research. I bet everyone here can cite some study about having a male or female name at the top of an identical resume, having an African American versus Caucasian sounding name at the top of an identical resume. So to get into the second question, I had a giant database at the moment they called me. It had 122 million people in it. So I pulled out every single actual Joe and actual Jose that we had. 150,000 Joes, 100,000 Joses. And I use it to compute that number. So let's hear some more guesses about what that lifetime number might be.
Lifetime cost of being Jose versus being Joe. Okay, we have a quarter million.
250. We say 250.
That's a great guess.
1.5.
That's
I'll go a million.
good.
A million.
You're gonna win a washer and dryer. Whoever
Round
is
45?
closest to this.
Well, do we have it?
All right,
Without
well,
going
what
over.
sort of rules are we acting? Is this the price of right rules?
This is the price
you
of
can't
right.
go over or just the closest?
Just
$1.
the closest.
$1.
Closest.
Give us
Closest.
$1.
Anyone else? You will
All right.
win a resume with Joe Jose's name on it.
Jose.
So the range is $500,000 to $1 million.
Ooh, so we
So-
should give the Eureka over here?
I
Yeah,
think
the one
the $1
in
million
million?
guess
Yeah.
is
All
probably
right, Eureka.
What did he get?
It's all
All
homework.
right.
The rest
Wait,
of it's
what is
all
your name?
Homework.
Emil, we
Emil.
can't give you a
Emil,
full
yeah,
prize
give him
for
the
Emil.
lesser one. Give
No,
him
let's-
the. Give him the.
No, we will give you these brain teasers.
Ooh,
There you
a game
are.
of brain teasers.
These little,
Ooh. Eureka.
Eureka.
So
good
what
job.
we found was that
$1
while there
million.
were a number of qualities that differed between Joe and Jose, between men and women, between blacks and whites in the job market, what we found consistently was that for the same quality of work, if you wanted the same probability of a promotion,
It's good to be white.
well, if your parents can go to that.
Your prize is you. Okay.
If, as it turns out, you didn't get that from your parents, then you need to go to more prestigious schools. You need to have higher degrees, additional years of education, fancier companies that you've worked for, more exceptional qualities, awards, and things like that. A great example of this is specifically what we found in the comparison between Joe and Jose. Those groups, when they're working in the tech industry, Jose typically needs a master's degree to be competitive with Joe with no degree whatsoever. So that's 6 years of education, 6 years of software engineering opportunity cost, salary, and you total up those numbers and average it across the companies funneling people into that workforce, it comes out to roughly $500,000 to $1 million.
So you could save all of that just by removing one letter. That's a
Yes,
saving.
the lesson here is clearly
Change your name.
Change your name,
To something
sex
white.
that?
change, bleach
Everyone-
your skin.
we all
If
have to be
anyone was
Joe.
unclear about where I was going with
Yes.
this, these
Good.
are my recommendations.
I
Everybody
got
can
it.
have white privilege now.
Yeah,
Sounds-
I'm going to change
sounds
my
awesome.
name to
Yeah.
Joe. This is going to be
Yeah.
Joe, like
Jojo.
10 Joes.
Isn't that a Beatles song?
Just homogenize the culture and all the names, all the skin colors, and then there's no
as
discrimination.
an employer, though, wouldn't I want that? Then I could go out and seek out those candidates, and then just hire everybody
So that's
at the
a famous
lower rate.
hypothesis, which is that these are undervalued employees. I can't remember, some famous CEO once said he loves hiring women because they're undervalued. And then it means he gets to pay them less for the same quality of work. But what is interesting about that statement is the assumption that people are knowingly hiring worse people. That would be
They're
an
not
odd
worse
thing
people.
for someone to do.
They're just as good. They just accept less pay.
No, what I'm getting at is your recruiters.
I'm really trying to make them hate me.
Yeah.
By the way,
I know.
Really, I'm going out on a limb.
But what I'm getting at here is you recruiters at your company, none of them are intentionally trying to tank the company. They think they're hiring the best candidate. The problem is, how do you change their perception that simply because a letter is present or absent in a name, somehow that person is magically better or worse at that job.
Spanish immersion classes probably would help. Yes, robot recruiter, there it is.
Or a job at the White House, brand new
They won't
work
hire
history.
any of us.
Yes. So here's a couple of other numbers. Being gay in the UK comes out to about $70,000 over the lifetime. It may not sound like much, but imagine just arbitrarily taxing families $5,000 a year for 15 years, 1 out of every 10 young men. The average woman in the technology industry is about $250,000. Here's this particular comparison of Joe versus Jose, and it turns out super linear, intersectionality. It doesn't say it, but these are lesbians in the tech industry in Singapore and Hong Kong, and now we're well up over $1 million.
So we're doing better than Singapore, is what I'm hearing. We're doing better than Singapore.
What if you're a lesbian named Jose in Singapore? Yeah. Like, where are we at that level?
It's called
So
Josie.
that's like
It's
deep.
pronounced Josie. I don't know if you're...
Like that's like deep down there. That's.
I feel like you're asking for a date.
Yeah. Josie, call me. That's.
All right, Vivienne.
You can use my identity.
Why do you call it the tax?
Yeah, so we computed these numbers, then we computed across a range of people, and what I came to understand is, much as it breaks my heart, let's ditch the talk of morality, let's ditch the talk of social justice. It feels rough to do this, but I don't need your help. I need the help of the people that voted for the current or the upcoming president. And to them, I need to make them understand this in a way that's visceral and they appreciate. Make them understand it as a tax. This is an arbitrary tax that we apply on the majority of people in our society, and it's robbing all of us of what these people could produce. So I have a second book coming out next year. It's called The Tax on Being Different.
This is the third book you've mentioned.
I'm writing several books. This is actually, this is the fourth book I've mentioned. I could go through the rest of them also. This is the tax on being different. And I think it's a much better way of thinking about this problem. You know, the problem is, we just saw the picture of the president, so clearly a black man can be president. Clearly a woman can be CEO. If you think it's just a glass ceiling, then we're done and we've gotten there. Well, that's obviously not what's going on. Anyone can climb to the top of Mount Everest, but some people are doing it with 100 pounds of rocks on their back for no reason. This tax doesn't pave roads, it doesn't build bridges, it's just loss in our economy. Of course, but not necessarily, because we are simply undervaluing the productivity potential of a huge swath of our population, which means we're paying too much for the people we are hiring.
Like a Kevin.
Or a John.
Yeah.
See, this is
We should
see
be-
where
yeah.
this is going. I disagree with this now.
I'm overvalued.
Does this same tax apply in other places in the world as well, like Africa? Because Asia
Oh gosh,
is there.
I mean, this plays out everywhere. Here's the simple truth. I cannot build a robot which is not biased. There is a fundamental law of machine learning, the bias variance trade-off. The better you are at generalizing to new instances, the worse you do with specific instances. I cannot make something that's perfect on both at the same time. So we're not bad because we're biased. Everything is. We're bad if we refuse to acknowledge it and do anything about it. In fact, we're bad to ourselves because it costs us. That's the story I'm trying to get across.
I hope our robot overlords.
Yeah.
believe that. Yeah. All right, should we jump to the next one? Yeah, let's speed
do it.
around. Okay, here
All
we
right,
go.
we're gonna go pretty fast here. Who is this person?
Justin Bieber.
It's Kevin Whittinghill.
Let's see.
Skateboarding next to a train.
I don't think he
What's
knows
going
how to
on here?
skateboard. He's about to jump on it the wrong way.
He's not hairy enough to be Alan.
And how did he do a kickflip without the back turn?
He cares about his knees. That's important. A lot of young kids these days, they don't wear the knee pads.
I don't know what you're doing with kids, Kevin.
All right, moving on there.
All right, some guesses from the audience.
Jeez,
Who
I'm
is
not
this
going
guy?
to respond to that
Who
one.
is this guy?
No, that would be nice, but this picture is taken from the late 70s.
Is it? Oh.
Late 70s. Ooh, oh.
Tony Hawk is one
It's
of this
close.
guy's best friends.
Uh-oh.
Really?
Does anyone else know the skateboarding community?
Is it a levitating monk?
What is your answer, sir?
Oh, is it the first question or the second question? Sorry, I just
Either one. Go for either one.
Okay, the second question, I know the amygdala has to do with fear, so I'm sure him and the best salespeople have less fear and a smaller or less active amygdala.
So let's call it a Eureka for the second question.
Okay, yes, Eureka, second question. Woo! Let me give. Run it down.
Is this a famous skateboarder that got injured?
This is arguably
Another brain, my friend.
the greatest
Nice
skateboarder
catch.
of all
Excuse me.
time.
Okay.
This is the Michael Jordan of skateboarding.
Oh, it is.
What was that?
Ooh.
No. No,
Michael
I'm feeling
Jordan?
bad. Oh! Yes!
Who is
you
it?
got it. Rodney Mullen.
Rodney Mullen, Eureka.
Let's give another little Eureka.
I
From
don't
the
know
late
where
70s through the early 90s, Rodney won 59 world championships in a row.
Wow.
Where Tony Hawk does the big jumps, Rodney does the sort of street moves. He actually has a great TED Talk. Go see it. So if a street move has a name, he probably came up with it.
Vivienne has a TED Talk about him.
I have a TED Talk where I mention Rodney. And Rodney has a TED Talk of his own. So Rodney is interesting because I had the chance to have lunch with him, and I said, what
That
do
makes
you
him
do?
interesting?
There are surprisingly few people willing to have lunch with me. So I asked him, what do you, I don't care anything about skateboarding. I said, what do you do after you win a world championship? Say it's the 40th one. And he said, it's like he's always on a skateboard. I don't know. Tony and I go drink a little champagne, and then we're out back 20 minutes later practicing new moves. So in the very short time that I knew Rodney, what was clear is, one, he likes to party. So he's not trying to get out of his party. He seems to really enjoy it. And the other is he just won 40 world championships in a row. He's clearly not afraid of getting beaten. So what's interesting about Rodney is that he doesn't care what he's supposed to do. He doesn't care that he's supposed to be at the party drinking champagne. He doesn't care what anyone else is doing. He only cares what his feelings about that are, what's known as endogenous motivation. So if you are driven by wanting to impress your friends, avoid punishment, get a raise, get a big bonus, that's probably exogenous motivation. Turns out that's a pretty robust negative predictor of life outcomes. Whereas the attenuated amygdala responses of people to certain types of events, like a salesperson that doesn't care whether they're getting fired, they care about the deal. A software developer that's trying to push code to a repository when the product's already ready for release, and you're just pissing your team off. These people are endogenously motivated. And while they might be really annoying in the moment, turns out it's a big predictor of positive life outcomes.
So
health and productivity and income and everything.
So it's known as being fanatic about something.
So the original title of my talk at TED was The Fanatic. That was, I guess, deemed too incendiary, and so they retitled it The Paradox of Incentive Insensitivity.
Rolls off the tongue.
There was so Steven Weinberg was is Nobel laureate in physics, did the electroweak theory, 79 Nobel Prize. So I was in his class during it was actually 9/11, and I walked in on 9/11. So it was in Texas, and we're all kind of freaked out. And this dude's Nobel Prize, he's like the late 60s, and he was about 15 minutes late. And he walked in. He's got this real thick German accent, and he said, we've had a national tragedy today, but since we're all here, we should do physics. And then he proceeded to just do a lecture on physics. And what I learned really clearly that day was that when he's happy, he does physics because that's what he wanted to do. And when he's sad, he does physics because that's what he does.
That's it. Turns out that's a fanatic, and that's a good thing. Gets back to what we were saying earlier. People need a purpose.
9/11, multiple fanatics in the, okay.
Exactly. Really,
Moving on,
yeah. They can all hate Kevin.
Well, what's important to note is that fanaticism is not per se a negative quality and doesn't require that you have a long and wild-seeming beard.
That's you.
But rather, it's, in my context, it's the state of being incentive insensitive.
And
that
in
you do
flow.
it for you. Passion is a very related motivator. It turns out you can look at studies tracking 10,000 West Point cadets, and the best predictor of their final rank attainment 10 years later in their career is endogenous motivation. And it turns out exogenous motivation, again, is a negative predictor of all the things that study researched. So here is my incredibly unhelpful advice. If you really want to get ahead in your career, do all the things that seem the scariest. And don't give a damn about what anyone else thinks.
There it is. All right.
Yeah.
But
Next
I'm a
question. Let's
comic.
do it.
I need
Yeah,
them
do
to like
stand-up
me.
comedy. It'll pay off.
Finding that thing that you wake up every morning and that you love doing every single day.
Masturbation.
That's the thing.
There it is.
So
Is
it's
that
important to
exogenius
notice
or
at this
endogenous?
Hand
moment,
in my card with the webcam link. It's a job.
There's actually an important thing. There are two different kinds of happiness. For the longest time, people couldn't figure out why happiness was uncorrelated with health outcomes. It seemed like happier people should be healthier, and they never found it, until they realized there was two kinds of happiness. Hedonic happiness, masturbation and Cheetos, and
Call that the John Allen happiness.
eudaimonic happiness, which for lack of a better description will say pride in a job well done. And it turns out
It can be
eudaimonic-
both.
You could be
Should
both.
be.
No shame in his game. What?
Know what's going on
That's
here?
true.
So it turns out once you split it out, hedonic is actually correlated with negative health outcomes, and eudaimonic is correlated with positive health outcomes. So if you take pride in both, they might be balancing each
That's
other
the
out.
sweet spot. All right.
Yeah.
No pun intended. Okay. Next question then.
Yes. All right, this is the worst slide I've ever made, but it turns out it's incredibly meaningful. So I wrote an op-ed once titled, "If Kids Were Bonds, They'd Be the Backbone of the World Economy." Taking in this lot of information invested in this graph, what do I mean by that statement?
Generational debt. that we
Yeah,
have to
this
pay
doesn't
back
involve like
for.
child labor, does it?
No, it
No.
does not
Okay,
involve child
good.
labor.
We have a maximum allowance of one graph per
One graph,
per
yeah.
presentation. Yes.
I mean, like seriously, like generational debt. If we borrow against the things that we've already paid for in society, we need more children to make sure that we get to continue to write off them as we get older.
So let me give you a hint that's a riff on that. I'm talking about the inverse. Let's call it the debt we accumulate by not investing in our kids.
We should ask out here.
All right, audience. Any answers?
Everyone's just staring at us. Staring contest. No.
The good
Have an
presents
answer.
are what's
Come on.
left.
Pick
Great
red or
presents.
blue.
Complete-
Red or blue.
Prizes
That
are what's
complete
left.
lack of fear, and take a stab at this.
It sounds quite simply like investing in our kids pays dividends down the road.
You're right.
Yeah.
The one person willing to make a guess, and it was the easiest one. In fact, give him.
All right, Eureka, everybody. Round of
Eureka!
applause.
You got the book and the thing.
Let's get the book.
Let's get the book. You got also
All
got
right.
this brain. You got this
and
brain
the brain.
again.
We'll see if anyone gets like a half question.
Is this
half
an
answer.
eraser or is it just a
2001
brain?
Space Odyssey.
Ooh.
HAL, AI, somewhat
Oh,
thematically
sounds-
related.
I'm gonna keep
Also
this
the-
one. We'll give you a different one actually.
Also, the book has no words as well. I don't know if that's.
Yeah, we tore the pages out.
So,
Yeah, it's gonna be narrated by you if you read it out loud.
So this
your own
graph here,
audiobook.
what it's showing you is we simply took published research that did something to kids and then tracked them across their lifetimes, and we said, what if we could do the positive somethings to every kid, the 50 million school-age kids in the United States today? Things we know work, outcomes that are not idealized, but were actually found in this research. And even though this looks really tiny here, this is a log scale. What we found is you'd add $1.5 trillion to the US economy every year. If you started
That's
doing
a
this
lot of
25 years
money.
ago.
That's
That
a
is
lot of money.
About 10% of US GDP.
That's 3 times the military-industrial complex's budget every year.
And you know that.
Because we need to cut that. No, just kidding.
Here we see for South Africa, again, this is nonlinear here, it's
That's
a
a lot of
terrible
money.
graph. That is a 60% increase in their GDP, and in India, 110%. You would double the GDP of India if we just did things that we know work.
So what are those things that we know work?
One of my favorite ever was done in Kingston, Jamaica, about 25 years ago. So they ran a program designed by University College London where social workers would go to the homes of severely at-risk toddlers in the Kingston area and didn't work with the kids, but with their parents. Once a week for an hour, they trained them in games they could play with their kids to help develop their social and cognitive abilities. And then it ran for 2 years, 1 hour a week for 2 years, and they ran out of money and it was done. And 20 years passed. Group of economists from the University of Chicago and UC Berkeley went down there. One of them, Heckman, has the Nobel Prize. And they found that those kids, it was 20 years later, no one's touched the kids. I'll leave the commentary to the...
They're not Catholic.
That's a John Allen
They're
reference.
not Catholic.
No.
They're not Catholic. There we go.
Okay. I'm passing those. All right.
All right, these are scientists,
I'm
not
shutting
priests.
up. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Hold on.
If you look at poor and developing countries like India, because education is a problem, right?
Yeah.
I'd say investing more in the women is where countries like India have seen more progress than investing in kids, because if a woman's educated, she's really doing a good job with the kids.
So, I mean, it's interesting to think that in a sense here, the interventions were with the parents. And this is Kingston, Jamaica. It's not, this is not the Oakland Hills. This isn't wealth. And what they found was 20 years later that the kids in the families that had gotten the interventions versus others that had been taught about nutrition earned 25% more. They were less likely to go to prison. They actually had pronouncedly better health outcomes. There's so much richness to say. We're actually starting a project now. My company is starting a project in India, specifically along these same sorts of goals. What's interesting, there's so much to be said, and it'd be really boring, and we're all supposed to be laughing. Microfinance that won the Nobel Prize is a wonderful idea, but it's only had a very modest effect on the large scale. And this is the idea of giving small loan investments, particularly to women. And it really does have a positive effect, but it hasn't had that multiplier effect that we expected it to have. Well, it turns out when you do these sorts of interventions with kids, which also includes very much empowering the daughters and the moms, that the multiplier effects, you get healthcare savings, education savings, the kids are more invested in their own education. There are a variety of secondary effects, and then later they're more productive when they enter the workforce. They earn more money, they do more creative things. So these multiplier effects, it's interesting. Here we're seeing the positive sides of compounding interest, where all of those savings are adding up and making everyone, not just these kids, everyone's life better. Whereas in the bias and diversity, one of the things we typically forget is that discrimination also comes with compounding interest. So every time you don't call on the girl in the math class, every time you overlook the right qualified candidate, that may be a small action, but it compounds across that person's life. So here we're talking about the opposite. How can we do the investment to make that profound difference?
And that investment is in a single activity every day for the parent to have with the child.
In this case, it was a single activity every day. He's trying to lead me in to plug my company, and I'm not going to do that on stage. But we do cool things.
And then the robot learns that activity and replaces both the parent and the child.
My
Problem solved. So good. Future. I love the future. We have one final question. John has to piss like a racehorse.
I like a fucking racehorse.
So I'm hoping it doesn't happen on stage.
Yeah.
All right,
what
there
the
you go.
hell is this? Now tie it to refugees.
Well, where are they refugee from? This is a radioactive
the world,
zone?
Man.
Look
the
at this.
World.
Blue faces, green faces.
1 second.
So let's separate out the questions. First, what is the video of? And then, what might it mean? And boy, that's a hard one. So stick on the guessing what the video is.
It's like 30 creepers looking at me through the
All
bedroom
right,
window.
hold on. People that haven't answered yet. I don't think we have had a question answer from over here.
So for the first part, I have a guess, which is this might be a heat map for facial recognition?
That is pretty good.
A heat map that tells what the heart rate is of the individual?
No, but
It's a server
so
status.
the one reason I'll tell you, the one reason why that's off is this isn't a heat map.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But there is facial recognition involved.
Well, the people on the top that are blue
Okay.
look creepier than the other people. I
Yeah.
don't know what.
You've never been abducted?
Never.
Not to say.
All right, we have another answer. All right.
Are these iterations on like a generative model for faces?
Exactly.
Eureka!
And that's question 10.
And a question from the non-audience: what does that mean?
Oh.
So this is a T-shirt you win. A Eureka T-shirt. Hope it's
Eureka
your
t-shirt.
size.
Oh. If it's not, we'll fix it.
You have to put it on right now. Show us those pecs.
Show us those pecs.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little story about what exactly this is, and then you're going to take some guesses on this last one, then we can get the hell out of here. So, when I was an undergrad, I worked in a lab called the Machine Perception Lab at UC San Diego, and we did a project for the CIA to do real-time lie detection off of video. Slightly morally gray. So, later in life, I wanted to find ways that I could apply similar technologies in a way that would have a bigger impact. One of those was the system for Google Glass to read facial expressions for autistic kids. This is the other one. This is what we might actually now call a deep neural network. It is a multi-layer, multi-hidden layer neural network, but before that was a term that was in vogue. And it's learning not just how to recognize faces, but also how people perceive them. So it actually was learning to, if you said, find me faces with a sense of ennui, it can actually do that by learning from the patterns. Yes?
I've actually weed on a lot of faces.
Have
I'm
you?
not sure.
Okay,
if
hold on.
That must be really expensive.
So how would it do that based on what culture you're in? Because I know in different cultures, smiles are different.
So, all right, now I got to go into this story slightly deeper. So my goal was to actually solve a completely different problem. And this is a huge hint here as to what this problem is. But I needed some way to train it. So it turns out one of the problems with deep neural networks is they're incredibly hard to train because you need a massive amount of data. How do I get a massive amount of data about people judging whether faces have certain qualities or not? You create a website called Sexy Face. And our promise is you play this game. We show you 18 random faces. You pick the ones you think are sexy. Then we show you another set of faces. And very quickly, you'll see that it's not random anymore. And within a few faces, we've got it. Here's our promise. For free, we will find everyone on Facebook you think is sexy. And for $5, we'll find everyone who thinks you're sexy.
Wow. I do that myself, but like late at night, I creep on the Facebook photos. Is that basically the same kind of research you're doing?
I think you should feel good about yourself.
Yeah. I figured I was doing something scientific.
Now a robot will replace you.
Yeah. Then I'll be replaced.
So how is this tied to refugees?
So how is this tied to refugees is I don't give a damn about Sexy Face. In fact, we never actually charge anyone any money for anything here. The next screen, after you play the game once, it says, actually, this is just a mind-reading game. Pick any facial category. All right, Southeast Asian, male, mutton chops, and a sense of elan. All right, it does it. Why did we do all this stuff with this silly game? It's what's called a Trojan. We were getting people to play this game because they were training our neural network to understand how people perceive faces. Why? Because there are over 1 million orphan refugees abandoned in refugee camps maintained by the United Nations around the world. So there's a program called Refugees United to try and unite those orphans with extended family members. So you're in Damascus, you haven't heard from your sister's family in weeks, you're fearing the worst, you go to Jordan to a refugee camp, and they literally give you a book, or at least when I did this 10 years ago, it was a book with 1 million photographs in it. And I hope you don't blink when your niece goes by. So we built this thing, works very much the same. You see we give you random faces pulled out of the book. You pick the ones, it's a little different, you pick the ones that are more like the person you're looking for. And we found 3 to 5 screens, give us 3 or 5 minutes, if that kid is in a refugee camp anywhere in the world, you found him.
She's a better person than you guys.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
What were the
I'm
facial
back.
expressions of the people when they found out they weren't playing sexy face?
That's a good point. That's a disappointing faces you find in the camp.
Just helping people?
We were training on that also. It turns out it was selected for CEOs. That sort of. So this is the movie of the system actually learning and training over time. So the answer to what the hell does the right answer mean? It means every iteration where we get new data points and the neural network learns a little bit, we take a snapshot. It's called generative because this kind of a network can actually generate examples of the things that it's learning. So it actually is learning thousands of thousands. It's called a dictionary of essentially faces, a dictionary of words. In this case, the words are faces. Want to describe a particular person? You just put a couple words together, and you can describe anyone in the whole world. And there's so many fascinating things we found in doing this project, but the heart of what we found is technology doesn't need to be about the optimal orgasm. It doesn't need to be about efficiently ending the lives of your enemies or about taking people's jobs. Technology can and should be about making people better.
Sweet. Vivienne Ming, everybody. Thank you very much. That was inspiring.
Yes.
I started shutting up. I can't.
I had to go pee.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
just in the way.
I can see that expression on your face
Yeah.
actually right now. It's clearly I need to go pee face.
So do we have time to open up for
No,
questions?
no. We have no time.
He has to piss.
I think we know what your answers are. You can go pee.
You can go pee.
It's a dick
You can go-
joke
you-
here. It's
you
a
can
dick
go
joke
pee.
there.
We-
All right,
go
I'm
pee.
gonna do
We're
it
gonna
because then
ask-
these
We'll
people are
we'll
gonna
do
run
yeah
before.
we'll do
All
yeah
right.
Go use
one
the bathroom quick.
one quick question
Wait.
and then we'll be hanging out after the
Bye.
show. Hopefully you can ask Vivian will be maybe you can ask questions after the show. To
I
Vivian
would
as
be
well.
happy to hang around after the show and tell you everything I know about that gentleman that just left the
All right, so a quick question before we open one question up to you guys is, so the technology that you've been using throughout all of these questions, everything you've been asking and teaching us, is there existing technologies for mapping neural signatures to the way that we see things? So if I see somebody I haven't seen in a month or a year, is there a way to catalog those neural patterns into understanding how our brains work?
So there are existing research projects. There's a group in Japan in particular that are trying to map the actual visual experience of dreaming. So literally reading your dream images out of your brain as you're doing it. There is a group, Raj Rao's lab in Seattle, that is putting mobile chips into people's heads and allowing them to transmit signals mobily to others. So you may have seen this. This was a case where they hooked up electrical stimulators to someone's arm so that the chip in his motor cortex could allow him to waste his life playing Guitar Hero. I don't know why. That was what the thing they had him doing with this amazing technology was play Guitar Hero. But so there are people I mentioned earlier that can walk. I mentioned this technology called neural dust that's being developed at UC Berkeley Lawrence Livermore Labs. It is little nanomachines that you can inject into a brain, at least in theory. You implement some chronic amplifiers, and you get thousands and thousands of little nanomachines that turn the electrical activity of your brain into RIDF, which can be then read outside. If you want me to tell what you're subvocalizing, what you're looking at, what your decision process is, how you're about, not how you're moving your limbs, how you're about to move your limbs, we can read all of that out essentially in real time. It's still very nascent technology, but could you build a true brain-computer interface? People have built true brain-computer interfaces. The question is, when is this going to get so good that you need to make a hard decision? It's kind of like whether you invest in the housing market or take doping drugs as an athlete is when do you start to feel like if you don't do these sorts of things, you won't be keeping up?
And John just took a piss, so he's good for another 2 hours.
Another 2 hours to sit here?
Just hang here.
All
So
right,
let's
we'll take a question.
Let's take a question.
All right, first hand was up here.
So, in your estimation, like the fact that the algorithms that you use and how these machines learn, the fact that you don't know exactly how they learn it, right? In your estimation, how much do you think that substantiates like fear of like what sort of results can be developed?
I have to say my most immediate sense of people's fear about, let's call it general AI, so this is the kind of AI that is thinking and acting in the world, is probably the fact that our vision of that is very similar to our vision of evil dark gods and vengeful spirits throughout history. It's probably telling us a lot more about ourselves than about the technology. The sorts of things, the reality is the first big distributed general AI is probably going to be something like a massive intelligent transportation network, not a smart car, but all of the entire Bay Area, all being controlled by one cognitive system. And why the hell would it ever want to talk to us or care what we're doing beyond how we're screwing up its traffic patterns and how it needs to adjust to that? So there's actually a lot of people that do research into sort of what you might call embodied artificial intelligence and how it might be wildly different than us because it thinks completely differently. So here's my final comment about this, which is I actually don't think we're ever going to have general AI until it fails to understand itself, just like we do.
Well, if you can make Muni smart, God bless you. That's all I'm going to say. We can do one final question. We got it. Then, we'll be done. Right. You can ask questions after the show. Here comes the last one.
Oh, such pressure.
I know. I'm sorry.
If you were to add any augmentation to yourself, what would you choose?
Good question.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think she
already did add augmentation to yourself.
Neither my son nor I would exist in a world without the technology to make us who we are. So you know where this really started for me, and we already kind of, I lose track of my discussion. I don't think we've talked about working memory at all. So on my personal website, for years and years, it has said, what if it were 20 plus or minus 2? So if anyone gets that reference, you're a fucking geek. All right. Own it. Oh, you don't know what it means. Well, you just saved your reputation.
Is it about a dodecahedron?
You do get it, so you are just as much of a loser as
there
I am.
It is. Good. Rock on.
Explain for the cool kids.
So, working memory
Shriveled
span. There was
testicle, my
a
friend.
famous paper in the 50s titled The Magic Number 7 plus or minus 2. And it was about how many things you could keep in memory at any given moment. Now, we've learned a ton since then, so that 7 number is a little wanky, but the plus or minus 2 is really interesting. If you're 9, that's a huge predictor of living longer, making more money, going further in education, even a correlate with happiness. If you're 5, boy, that doesn't bode well.
You have 100 pounds of rocks as you're trying to climb up Everest.
Yes, that's a little extra effort, a lot of extra effort you need to make. Sounds like a small effect. How many things you can keep in mind? Same systems are related to your imagination, your attention span, the complexity of an argument you can follow. So it turns out 2 extra digits and your life outcomes are transformed. So when I originally started doing this work, I was thinking if I could build a cognitive neuroprosthetic that could increase people's working memory span, that would make a significant impact on the human condition. And what's interesting is we know exactly how to do this in the opposite direction. We know in precise detail the molecular mechanisms that are causally implicated in decreased working memory span as a result of social isolation, as a result of early childhood stress. So we seem fine with that. I'd like a world where we could take it in the other direction. And yes, maybe even into the 20s. To give you a sense, the smartest person you will likely ever run into along this particular dimension might be in the low teens. So what would it be if we were 3 times as high as the average person? You know, in orders of magnitude higher than the smartest person you ever. Neurotypical, as we call them. I don't know. I don't know what it would be like. But I'm me as a not particularly spiritual scientist, that is a leap of faith I'd be willing to make.
So everyone go home tonight and try to remember as many numbers as you can and cry yourself to sleep knowing it's not in the teens. Dr. Vivienne Ming, everyone. Big round of applause. Wonderful. And our delightful comics, John Allen, Krista Vodka, everybody. Thank you all for coming out tonight.
A few more quick words. So a few ways to follow Dr. Vivienne Ming are via Neural Theory is her Twitter handle. She also, you can go to sokoslearning.com. The company Sokos, you can follow that there. I would like to mention, so in 2017, we have a few upcoming events for you. We have the SF Sketchfest show. That's going to be on January 19th. That's a Thursday at 6 p.m. at California Academy of Sciences.
That's right. Somewhere in the 6 to 10 p.m. range is what we were told. You're on the mailing list. We'll let you know the exact time.
Adam's another neuroscientist, super smart, super fascinating research. If you can get a ticket.
Yes, there'll be a lot of events happening that night. You to buy your ticket, you can do tons of stuff within that 6 to 10 p.m. range. A lot of comedy and geeky stuff.
Awesome.
Follow us.
That's where to follow us on our Twitter. If you took photos, tag us in them. Please post them, and we'll be sharing all of these photos in the video as well. We're going to condense it from about this hour and a half long one to 30 minutes of the meet, and we'll post that online. So please share that.
Yeah. What's that? It was pure gold.
It's not all gold.
We're gonna do it. It'll be in slow motion, so it lasts longer. It'll be excellent. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you guys for coming out. Share with your
coming
friends.
Out. Have a wonderful night. Safe drive home. Thank you, guys.